Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to My Deep Guide. In today's video we are going to check the Boox Palma, and that is something that has appeared on My Deep Guide as a prototype device some months ago, but today Boox has launched the official product, no longer a prototype or anything like that, the black and white version of the Boox Palma, which is a fairly peculiar and an interesting device. So in today's video we're doing a regular review, not a super in-depth review, but basically just a regular review so that we can see what this device brings to the table. This device has been sent to me as a review loan device by Boox, but they don't have any kind of say into this video. They don't even see the video before you guys see it. They see it as you guys see it. So my opinions are my own, and that's pretty much it. And when I'm done with the work, the device goes back to Boox. And also I invite you to check out the mydeepguide.com/shop, where you can find the MDO 2024 freshly released, and there's also the MMP. So MDO is a My Daily Organizer, a hyperlinked PDF file, which is a yearly organizer that satisfies all of your yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily organizing needs, whether they are private or professional. And you also have the My Deep Guide Meeting Planner, or MMP, which is also a hyperlinked PDF document which helps you centralize, simplify, and organize all of your meeting needs. All right, and now onwards with the Boox Palma. Alright, so since this is going to be a quick review look at the Boox Palma, let's start with the basics. What is it? Well, Boox Palma is a 6.13-inch 300 ppi e-ink black and white display paneled powered device. It is unlike any other Boox device so far, obviously because of its format. And as you can see, the format is no longer in tablet form of any sort. This is clearly a smartphone format. So this is the first iteration of Boox actually going in to that direction. Everybody can be excused for thinking that, hey, cool, this is a Boox e-ink powered smartphone device that I would like to use, which is actually super awesome because I was always waiting for that. Well, kind of pump the brakes there, because this is not a smartphone. This does not have SIM capability and doesn't have network capability, which means it cannot use network as a source for your internet. So of course it does have Wi-Fi, but it needs to get that Wi-Fi connection from somewhere. So that can be your router, it can be your phone as a hotspot, or it can be a dedicated device which is a mobile hotspot. But on its own, this one cannot use SIM networks so that it can actually get the network internet. So that is a very, very important distinction to keep in mind. As far as the internals go, this is an octa-core powered device with 6 GB of RAM, 128 GB of internal storage, which is expandable, I believe, up to 2 TB via the micro SD card slot on the side. It is a front light enabled device, and the front light, it's a dual front light, which is you can adjust the color temperature from cold to warm, and you can of course adjust the intensity as well. You can't really see that in these super well lit conditions, but I'll show an example of that like via the magic of edit somewhere around here while I'm rambling about all this. Boox Palma is equipped with a light sensor, so if you do have the brightness set to automatic, then it will detect the light conditions around it, and it will actually lower and adjust the intensity. And the good thing is that it will also disable the front light completely if the device is in very well lit conditions. Now, some of the people may not be familiar with why is this black and white, and why is this, and what's this e-ink thing? Well, e-ink screen is a dedicated type of technology that does the opposite of what your traditional screen does. So a traditional LCD or OLED screen has really low visibility in well-lit conditions, such as maybe this light box or outdoors in direct sunlight, etc., which means that it has to pump up the brightness all the way to the maximum so that you can, have some inkling of what you can see, which of course consumes a lot of energy. And the second point, that's a negative point of LCD and OLED screens, is that they use backlight technology, and backlight technology introduces flickering and a blue spectrum of light that causes certain effects on certain people with medical conditions. So some people can't use backlit devices. This is why e-ink is actually, that's what it's used for. It provides excellent visibility in well-lit conditions, so better lit conditions are, better you will see the screen itself, because ultimately it is a reflection-based type of a display panel. However, if you put it into a dark condition, then you can't see anything. That's why it has a front light. And the front light is the one that actually gives the light onto the screen so that you can actually see and use the device in darker conditions as well. The negatives of e-ink technology is A, it's expensive, B, it's black and white in this case, and C, it is significantly slower than any LCD and OLED. So even this device that has a separate dedicated proprietary developed GPU that has solely purpose to clean up the image and speed it up, you can expect up to maybe 12-15 frames per second, and that's going to be like pushing it to the extreme performance of e-ink screens and e-ink technology. And the final thing is a term called ghosting, which is something that you will see throughout the whole thing. And actually I can demonstrate it if I go to ultra fast and I start let's just start moving things around. Although Palma is extremely good at this, but you can see some remnants. There you go. So you can see some remnants of the previous screen that was here. Boox Palma has a really good refresh screen options. So you have ultra fast, fast, balanced, and HD. And the trade-off in those screen modes, refresh modes, is that HD, best quality, least amount of ghosting, and best resolution and everything that you can get, but it is slowest. So you can actually see that if we go into here and we go to HD and let's go back, you can see that the refresh speed is really slow, and plus you have these kind of really strange remnants. That's how the technology works. Then you have the balanced mode, which is nicely balanced and it's really, really responsive, and this is where that dedicated GPU unit or GPU really comes to shine, because it gives you the option to properly use an e-ink device and have it very, very interactive, which is not usually the case. Then we have the fast mode, which gets faster. So faster you get, more image degradation and more ghosting you will expect. So it is a trade-off that you always need to balance, but this is why you have all of these refresh speed modes. And a cool thing about the Boox Palma or any other Boox device, but in this case as well, is that you have the optimization options. So you can manually optimize this, but the best way to actually use it is when you enter an app. It's actually quite intelligent now. So you can just enter an app and I can adjust it. Okay, so I want Google Play to work on balanced mode, and for whatever reason I would like my Edge browser to be in balanced mode, right? So we have fast and balanced. So in Edge I'm in balanced, and when I leave and go to Google Play Store, he should automatically switch to fast, and he did. And if I go back here and maybe I want my home experience to be in HD, it will automatically adjust these things. So that is something that's a really, really nice thing to kind of work with. And previously you had to use a lot of steps to adjust this, but this makes it a much more seamless type of a natural and organic type of an experience, which is really important on a device that resembles the use case scenario of a smartphone primarily. Now, while we're talking about the refresh capabilities and all of that, we can actually also mention one really important point. All right, so let's say that for the sake of presentation here, I'm in fast and I'm browsing through whatever that I'm browsing, and maybe in this case the performance of Palma is really good, but you can see a little bit of ghosting here maybe. Well, with Palma that's not a problem, because on the left hand side right next to the micro SD card slot there's a dedicated button, and that button is the manual refresh button. So whenever you have some kind of inkling of ghosting, you just press the button, it clears it right up. Since we're talking about buttons, let's continue with the layout. On the right hand side you have the volume rocker, which can be assignable to function as volume, and it can also function as next in previous page in reader applications. And above it you have the power button. There's no fingerprint reader enabled on this device whatsoever, so you don't have that option. On the top there's, I believe, just a sensor or a microphone. On the bottom there's a microphone as well, USB-C, which is OTG capable, and a single speaker. This is not a speaker, this is just there to kind of look like a speaker. On the front, the screen is flush with the surface, and it is a nice surface. The reflectiveness is not that bad. It's actually a lot better if you compare it to like a traditional smartphone. It's a lot better than that, but it is still kind of reflective, so you will see fairly sharp reflections here. The trade-off is you have a little bit more reflectivity, but that also means that there's quite a bit of transmittance through that initial surface, which makes the image clarity and sharpness and contrast better than on true AG type of surface that would give you matte type of reflections, but it will have a negative effect on the quality of the image. The display itself, as I said, it's an HD Carta e-ink display with a 300 ppi image resolution or density. On the back you have this kind of lovely paper-like, carton-like surface, which I really like, and they say that it's black, but there's definitely tints of green, and you can see this is black, this has quite a bit of tints of green, which is kind of nice. And the new devices that are coming out are also going to be black and white issues of this one. This is the prototype that I received earlier, but the new devices that are going to be released are going to be pretty much the same thing. While we're on the back, you have the Boox logo, you have the flash, and you have a single camera. This is a 16 megapixel camera, so nothing impressive there. And furthermore, out of the box experience is that you should use that camera only for scanning, right? Because there is no dedicated camera app that comes with this device. However, again, this being an Android 11 Google Play enabled device, you can download any camera app that you may want, and yep, then it can function as a normal camera, and it can take photos and yep, work as a normal camera. However, the images that you do get out of it, and again through magic of editing, I'm going to show you a couple of images. This camera is really not that good. I think there's a reason why they didn't include a camera app. I don't think that this camera was meant to replace your smartphone camera. It's meant to just be used to scan documents, do OCR conversion, and that's pretty much it. So don't expect photographs of excellent quality from it. Can you take photos if you really need to? Yes, it can do that. It can function like that, but it's not meant to do that, and the quality of photos that you're going to get are going to, reflect that. So this is where we're starting to kind of go into a confusing territory, which is what's the Boox Palma for? So for Kindle, it's definitely something that you can use, and because of the way the formatting works is you can use it like this, and of course because it has auto rotation, you can do it like this, and the performance is quite nice. The image quality is excellent, and readability is really good throughout. I'm not a fan of the rounded corners here of the bezel itself, mainly because the user interface is not really optimized to accommodate for these things. So depending on a use case scenario, some apps may actually get uncomfortably close to the edges, and yeah, and there's always a trade-off. You're kind of losing the width and the height of the bezel. Yes, it looks kind of nice, but you're losing the real estate of the usability of the screen that you have. So, but that's a personal thing, I guess. So as a reader, yeah, definitely works as a portable kind of thing, but it might be just me, but I am not a fan of the vertical portrait orientation like this. So for me, when reading, this is not the format that I would prefer for my reader, nor is this. The width is nice, but then there's very little that's actually fitting, and then the ergonomics of it just don't work, because I'm going to accidentally touch this, and then I can maybe disable. Then I get into the whole thing of, okay, so then disable touch, and then maybe you can use and program the volume rockers to act as page flips and things like that. So certainly the possibilities are there, and the flexibility is really good, because as I said, you can have Kindle, you can have Kobo, and of course you can use the inverted schemes on both Kindle and Kobo, and it will work as well like that, if that's something that you prefer. I personally don't prefer that, because you're forcing the screen to make a much bigger change when it's kind of changing these things. So while it can function, I don't see it as actually offering a good type of content, and usually I can see that the letters in the dark mode are thinner, and it doesn't actually provide as much of perceived contrast as you do with the black letters on the white background. So for EPUBs and just digital book reading, Kobo books, Kindle, or whatever it is that you may be using, or EPUBs that are formattable, that's fine. However, where it becomes a problem is if you actually get into its usability with PDFs. Granted, it is enabled with the Neo Reader, which has excellent formatting capabilities, but this format itself is a problem. So, for example, I have a page like this, and I can't really make a format that's gonna do it well for me. It's really, really hard to find a format that's gonna work for this, because if I do fit with, I can fit with, but that doesn't really quite work. And there's an option that's kind of missing that we don't have on Boox Palma and we have on other devices. So yeah, you can do reflow, but in my experience the reflow rarely works well, so I'm not gonna go through that whole thing because it just simply doesn't really work that well. So I'm missing the comic book option, which allows you to segment it into 2 views, and then I would be able to kind of page flip and see this whole thing. But then again, I wouldn't be able to because of this vertical format. So the only way that I can actually use PDFs here is in portrait mode and fit to width, and then the readability is great. As you can see, the readability is just fine. But then again, I have this problem of really limited height, and it doesn't fit. The stuff doesn't really fit that much on this single screen. So, and since I am primarily using PDFs on these types of devices, that is a big issue for me. So if you rely on heavily use of PDF documents, then this is definitely something that you have to keep in mind, because it is not a format that is well suited for that kind of use. I mean, other than that, it's a normal Android device, so that means that you can watch YouTube if you want. No, we're not gonna connect to anything. Let's close this and see what do we have. So I don't know, let's check this out, for example. So this is a performance of how it would look like if you were to watch a YouTube video, and how would that sound. So let's go a little bit volume.
Traditional style jazz master rocking bridge, meaning it rocks back and forth.
Right, so nothing spectacular, but absolutely usable. And again, like with any other app, you can actually choose between fast, ultra fast, balanced, and things like that. For me, the ultra fast option, it just degrades a little bit too much. Fast is the option that I like. But a little tip here, you can see these 3 dots next to refresh modes. If you tap on that, you will get additional options, and there's a little bit of a trick here, because you will have HD and then balanced. So by default, what you're probably going to see in video performance is this. And you can see quite a bit of flickering here if you're interested in video performance. But there is an option to kind of remedy that. So what you need to do is flip up, go to 3 dots next to the refresh modes, go to balanced, and then adjust the anti-flicker until it satisfies your needs. The trade-off is more anti-flicker you have, more ghosting you will have. But yeah, I think that the GPU does exceptionally good a job there. The only thing to kind of keep in mind, and something that I've noticed, is that when watching videos, or especially when watching videos and browsing through content that has a lot of animated banners and things like that, the device is going to start to heat up. And at some point, if it's like really demanding, it can actually, if you're doing that for a long time, it can overheat. It can overheat so that it's uncomfortable to hold, and the heating will be around this area here. And because this is an all plastic device, and this is a passive GPU, so it doesn't have active cooling, that means that all the heat is going to be attempted to be dissipated through the shell itself. That's normal how it works. And the GPU itself seems to have been designed for that operation, but Boox Palma is an all plastic device, as I already said. That heat dissipation performance is much lower. So as a trade-off, the device is going to get hotter, and you will actually feel heat all around this area if you're doing prolonged, very, very demanding activities. Now, why is heat bad? Well, it can be detrimental to the performance of the device if it's too long, like if you're doing it for a very, very long time, and also if you're doing super extensively demanding tasks, and you're doing it in out and about in direct sunlight, that's going to have an additional negative effect, and then the whole device is going to get hotter. And heat is definitely not good for internal components, and it's definitely not good for the battery itself. Now, when we're talking about the battery, the Palma is equipped with the 3950 milliamp battery, which is fairly large, and it's actually impressive that they managed to keep this device only at 160 grams. So it's very light and nicely thin. It just feels really good in the hand. So it has plenty of battery, but it does need a lot of battery because of that GPU, because it's really power hungry. So remember when I actually said that one of the benefits of the e-ink technology is that you use that the e-ink screen uses way less battery power. So yeah, that is definitely a main advantage. So a regular e-ink device with a 3950 milliamp battery should be able to last for weeks, if not well over a month of regular use, non-video use, but regular use. That is not the case with the Palma, simply because it has that dedicated GPU that is tasked with clearing up ghosting and improving the display image clarity and performance. So the battery performance on Palma is not that great. For example, if you are doing standby, you can expect around 400 hours of standby time in regular conditions. If you're doing reading or browsing with no heavy video content, but just balanced mode reading and things like that, for example, when I was reading, it was spending at around 8% of battery per hour, which means that you can expect around 12 and a half hours with the front light set at 30% intensity. When you turn the front light all the way off, then the power consumption went down to 6%, which means around 16.6 hours of hours per charge. And if you actually bump that front light all the way up to 100%, then the consumption went all the way up to 12% per hour, which means that you can expect around 8.3 hours of reading or actions performing with 100% front light. Now, the good news is that while that is a really bad battery performance for any kind of device, especially for an e-ink device, the good news is that you will probably never need to use the front light at 100% intensity. So 30% intensity is mostly what you will have, and then we're talking about 12 and a half hours of active use. The similar thing was with the video as well. So video was without any front light, it was far more demanding. So it was 12% spent per hour, which gives you around 8.3 hours per charge of video watching, if that is something that you want to use this device for. Overall impression of the Boox Palma was, at first when I got it, I was not really sure what's it for, because it's not a great e-reader, it's not a great smartphone replacement, so it's something in between. But I have to say that more I used it, more I actually liked using it, and it's mainly because of this display quality and the front light and the auto intensity adjustment, things like that. These are creature comfort kind of things that just make Boox Palma usable, and while it is not a fully functional smartphone and it really needs an internet access, you need to give it some type of internet access. Provided that you do that, Boox Palma then actually can act like a decent replacement for your smartphone if you don't need photographs and you're not looking for stock Android experience. So the first thing that I'm missing for the Boox Palma is the stock Android OS experience, simply because the Boox UI, even as it is on its own, it's not the best of things, even when it's like used on devices where it's actually kind of been designed for tablets, 10.3-inch tablets to be specific. When it's scaled down to the size of, let's say, a 6-inch reader like the Boox Poke 5, for example, or Poke 2, then it kind of struggles, but it's still a different format with the 4:3 aspect ratio. When you get to this 16:9 aspect ratio, that's where you actually figure out that this, it's not really meant for that, and more you actually use it, more you see issues, and there's so many issues. So, for example, when I'm performing my battery tests, I use the auto page turn functionality, right? And in this case, auto page turn functionality doesn't have enough room, or whatever, for whatever reason, the display value of how many seconds for the interval and what is the total number of pages that's going to be flipped is completely gone. It's been truncated simply because it doesn't fit on this screen. And this is just one example. More you use this device, more you start running into these UI issues where you just kind of see that it has been like really strong armed into this 16:9 format. It doesn't like being there, and it shows it. The second thing that prevents me to kind of consider this as a long-term Android smartphone replacement is the fact that, first of all, it comes with Android 11, and that wouldn't be a problem on its own, but this is a brand new device in 2023 that is coming out with an Android 11 and zero possibility that it will ever be upgraded to any other Android version. And that is a gigantic issue if this is supposed to be looked at as a smartphone replacement, and you can't not look at it as a smartphone, e-ink smartphone replacement, because it physically looks like a smartphone. So if you're gonna make a device that's not supposed to be a smartphone replacement, then don't make it look like one. So let's summarize the conclusion of Boox Palma, what I think about it, and let's start as usual with the cons. And the most obvious con for me that I have to start with is that this device has no SIM card compatibility, so that means no networks, and that means no internet on its own. Overheating in certain situations, definitely something that would keep me a little bit worried and wary of how and when I use this device in certain situations. I believe that this device does not have a clear target audience. I know that Boox has defined it in a certain way, their PR way, but this is a smartphone, e-ink smartphone replacement device. That's what it looks like, and no amount of marketing, PR, text is going to change that fact. So it's going to be perceived as such, and as such, I think that it's somewhere in between, but that's what's going to make it a very confusing device for a lot of people, I think. And that leads me to another con. What is it? It's not a smartphone. It's not an e-reader. It's something in between. And I just have a big question mark. While I do enjoy using it in many, many different situations, I equally don't enjoy using it in many different situations in which I would enjoy using an e-reader. So I'm not thoroughly enjoying using it as a smartphone, and I'm not thoroughly enjoying using it as an e-reader. It's just kind of floating in between those two. So it's a little bit meh. Battery life, I think, also is most definitely a con. While it is like a battery life that is going to provide you like on a average smartphone, that in itself defies one of the biggest advantages of an e-ink device, why you would consider an e-ink device primarily. First is visibility, eye-friendly option, and visibility in high highlighting conditions. But the second one is also battery-saving options, and the fact that traditionally an e-ink device is supposed to hold battery life for weeks and weeks and weeks, and that's simply not true with the efficiency of the battery life on the Palma. Another con is that the camera itself, while it does have it, when you add a camera to a smartphone looking format of a device, people are going to expect to use it as a camera, and just because you don't provide and you want it to be used as a scanner and not as a regular camera, again, I think that's going to be a point of confusion. So as a scanner, yes, it can be used, but the camera itself, I think it's below average, and yeah, you should, if you're going to use it, stick to using it as a scanner only. But a positive here is that while it does have a tiny little bit of protrusion on the back, it's very minimal. It's just a protective cover, so it's not a ginormous bulge on the back of the device, and that's actually a good thing to see. A big con is also that it comes preloaded with Android 11, and because of the way how Boox operates, this device will never be upgraded to a newer version of an Android device. It will receive Boox updates and newer Boox OS versions, but it will always remain an Android 11 device. And to buy a brand new device that's an Android 11 in 2023, end of 2023, that's a tough sell for me. And that also leads me to the Boox OS and the usual Boox UI issues. They are elevated to a new level basically on this one, as the new screen format really shows that the UI has, I have no other word but to just kind of say, strong-armed to somehow fit into the 16:9 format, and it does so currently badly. This is something that can be fixed via the OS updates, and Boox Palma is receiving regular OS updates. Whether or not and to what degree that's going to be remedied in the future remains to be seen. Right, and now let's talk a little bit about the pros. And I think that despite my criticism of it, it can serve as an excellent smart device replacement provided that you have internet access. So as long as you give it internet access, it can, in quite a few areas, it can prove as an excellent smart device replacement with an e-ink screen. It's very light and very portable. The format is excellent, really nicely. It holds in one hand. I really actually like how this device kind of is holding in your hand. So the portability is definitely there. Excellent screen visibility in all conditions because it has that really well functioning auto light detection in conjunction with the front light. So you can just turn it on, and if you're in high bright conditions, it will turn the front light off, and as I was walking into darker conditions, it simply flips on, and it's a really responsive one. It doesn't take too much, it doesn't make any fancy like transitions, it's just like switches dramatically, but to me that actually works because I get to see my content sooner. While talking about the front light itself has excellent uniformity and has really good quality itself, and it's of a very pleasant quality overall. It has excellent ghosting and screen refresh performance because of that dedicated specially designed and implemented Boox GPU. And yeah, as I mentioned, auto brightness works well, but also does the auto rotation works well. It's very responsive, so by the time I'm done actually doing a gesture, the device is also done and ready for me to continue using it. And overall, the device is quite snappy and very responsive in pretty much all of the situations that I've been using it, so it just feels like a normal smartphone. So, what's the overall summary of the Boox Palma? Well, I believe that this is a device with a great potential and a real-world use, provided that you give it internet access. Obviously, the biggest issue the device has is that it doesn't have a SIM network internet access capability on its own. But that might not necessarily be a deal breaker, because that can be easily remedied, of course, by your smartphone acting as a hotspot, but that defies the purpose if you want to replace your smartphone with something like that. However, there are dedicated mobile hotspot devices that exist, which are really small and portable. You stick a SIM in it and it generates a Wi-Fi, and then you use that Wi-Fi hotspot with the Palma, and then hey presto, you got your whole package. So that combination would allow you to use the Palma as a smartphone. So I think that Palma overall surprised me. Not entirely, but quite a bit, because at first I was really like, why, why incomplete, right? So it is a very promising device, but it is incomplete. So you will want to use internet with it. And as such, you will need to make a decision if you're considering to buy and use a Boox Palma. And that is, do you want to use a smartphone as a hotspot for it when you're on the go? Because clearly that's a mobile portable device, that's what it's made for. Or will you have to invest into buying a dedicated mobile hotspot device? On its own, it is not a complete user experience. I also strongly wish, more I used it, more I wish that it had a stock Android OS on it and a newer version of an Android OS on it. If it had that, then I would actually be very tempted to purchase one along with the mobile hotspot. But one thing that Palma definitively shows, I think, and because of that responsiveness with the GPU and the dedicated GPU and the clarity of display and the performance overall, is that an e-ink smartphone is not only possible, but it is a really nice prospect to entertain, provided that it gives you the performance that the Boox Palma does. But as it is now, the Boox UI experience, while it certainly can do a lot of things, and of course it can do, it just doesn't feel at home on a smartphone format like the Palma. And every step of the way when I was actually using this device, that was the main point of contention for me, because I was constantly being reminded that close but not really there. Alright, so that's it as far as the Boox Palma goes. Let me know what you guys think, what your impression is of this device, and what are the pros and cons that you can think of on a device of this type. Also, let me know in the comments down below if you have some questions or something like that regarding the Boox Palma, and I will try and address them, or somebody from the audience as well will help you address those questions as well. If you like the video, if you found it interesting, if you find it informative, then please like and subscribe to the channel to get notified when new videos come out on my deep guide. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye.